Greetings and salutations. Welcome to a very merry special episode of Morning by the Coast, a weekly podcast brought to you every Monday morning. Well, not really every, but we'll get into that in just a sec. But this is a special episode of Morning by the Coast. Every week for the month of December, I will be doing a Christmas themed episode, and today will be the first installation of a new series or sub-series that I'll call Reel to Reel, which I'll be dissecting a random movie at my choice and kind of dissecting it and kind of going through the course of the story, only using my knowledge that I have currently without watching the movie or relying on Google to kind of figure out facts about the movie or other important story aspects. So I'll be going solely off of what I remember from the movie. But with that being said, let's get right into it. So, before I get into things, I'd like to explain my hiatus and where I've been the past couple weeks or so. I'm just gonna give it as it is. I got a bit sick of doing the podcast for really one reason and one reason only. It was simply due to my recording methods. Mainly using my phone. I don't know if you can tell. Hopefully you can. But I'm now filming this on a nice Blue Yeti microphone. So a nice professional setup. I'm finally using my computer. Recording all of this on Audacity. So that's kind of what happened. And I remember I mentioned it previously. Both the pros and the cons. But I said I wanted to wait until I had a real setup going rather than just doing it kind of haphazardly and just like I wanted to make sure I was producing quality content rather than just putting something out just for the sake of putting it out. I wanted to make sure that what I was making is something that I was proud of making. And at the time of those two episodes that I did release, I was not feeling that. The first episode I was happy with, but the second one, if you have listened to it, which I suggest you probably don't want to listen to it, the audio cut out. When I tried importing it into iMovie on my phone, I was having an abundance of issues. It was only letting me clip about 30 minutes of the audio, and I tried inserting pictures and all of this, and nothing was working properly. And I thought, you know what, I'm gonna worry about this at a later time when I actually know what I'm doing or when I actually have an actual setup. And I was planning on uploading this Monday, which as of today is Monday the 4th. Well, today's not Monday the 4th, but the day that this will be released is the 4th. But I was just gonna use just a headset with one of those attachable mics. But just abruptly I decided, you know what, I'm gonna get a microphone. And here I am now recording. And with that being said, let's get right into Reel to Reel. So Reel to Reel is a segment that I thought of, just randomly came to my mind. I'm sure it's been done before. I'm not taking full credit for this idea. But the concept is just me talking for an hour or however long about any movie. And since it's December and each episode for the month of December is going to be Christmas themed, I thought, you know what? Let's do Home Alone. Probably one of my favorite, if not my favorite, Christmas movies, besides Polar Express. Polar Express is another great movie, and heck, maybe I'll do another Polar Express Reel to Reel sometime later this month. I don't know, just saying. But Home Alone is a great movie. I've seen it a gazillion times, although I don't know how much I remember of it, since I'll be going only off of what I remember. But it's just a great movie. Everybody has seen it, and if you haven't, you're crazy. Go watch it and then come back and listen to this. But Home Alone, great movie, and that's what I'm going to be talking about on this episode, or this installation of Reel to Reel. So before I get started, I want to make sure I mention my website, which is morningbythecoastblog.wordpress.com. Once again, that is morningbythecoastblog.wordpress.com. There you can find all the news and updates on Morning by the Coast if you want to stay updated, or if there's something that happened that'll maybe push back the recording or the uploading of Morning by the Coast, you can hop on over to, once again, morningbythecoastblog.wordpress.com. If you'd like to contact me directly, any questions, comments, topic ideas, or really anything at all, feel free to email me at mbtcpodcast.info@gmail.com. Once again, that's mbtcpodcast.info@gmail.com. Thank you for listening to Morning by the Coast, a weekly podcast brought to you every Monday morning at 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. But with that being said, let's get on with the show. So, Home Alone, a cult classic. Everybody knows about Home Alone. But how much do I know about Home Alone? So I haven't seen Home Alone in a couple years. I know that might be shocking, especially since it is my favorite Christmas movie. Again, besides Polar Express. But let's just start. So the main character, Kevin McAllister, is a young boy. I believe they live in New York, in the suburbs. It's a pretty large family. It seems like, I don't know if they all live together or they're meeting at the same household, Kevin McAllister's house, that is. But the opening scene shows them all kind of running all over the place, kind of scurrying around. And I feel like this is just to set up or to get the point across that they're a pretty disorganized family. You see everybody running around. And then the pizza guy comes up and he's kind of looking for somebody. And then I believe Kevin walks up to him. And then he goes and finds his dad. And his dad pays for the pizza. And then I don't think they start eating before the wet bandit comes up, but they all have the pizza. But before that happens, one of the wet bandits, comes to the door, and he's disguised as a police officer. I believe this is to show that he's kind of scoping the houses out, seeing if any families are going to be gone, and guess what? The McAllisters are going to be gone. So this is a great opportunity for him to find a good house that will suit his goal, which is obviously breaking into the house and robbing them. So then, if we fast forward a little bit to the pizza scene, you see the family all at dinner. This is an introduction to a lot of characters, one of them being Buzz. I believe that's his name, who is Kevin's older brother, and we kind of see his, snarky attitude. He's very kind of uptight, but, kind of a softy at heart, but you kind of see him, give Kevin a bit of a stink eye. I believe we have a bit of dialogue that's exchanged between both Buzz and Kevin. If I'm not mistaken, I believe it has something to do with, stealing pizza or the last slice of pizza. That's just a complete guess. I don't know if that's true at all, but that's a guess that I have. I also believe within this scene we see Kevin's interaction. Oh, wait. I retract the last slice statement. I believe what Buzz is talking to Kevin about is their neighbor, who is supposed to be some scary guy who kills people with shovels and buries them alive. Or not alive, but buries them. And we see Kevin look out the window, and he looks at his neighbor, this guy who's supposed to be shown as being creepy and sinister, and we see Kevin's reaction, and he's kind of shocked, and he's very kind of scared. That's probably the only word that you could use to describe how he's feeling. And we see the neighbor have a lot of impact on the story later on in the movie, but I believe that was the exchange that they had between Buzz and Kevin. And then we have Uncle Frank, who's a creepy dude. He has one son who's kind of like the nerd. He if you're listening to this and you've seen Polar Express, and I hope you have, otherwise, again, just like Home Alone, go watch Polar Express and Home Alone, and then come back to this. but his son looks like the nerdy kid with glasses from Polar Express. It could be a direct influence, or the Home Alone had an influence on that character in Polar Express. But we see Uncle Frank's son, kind of that weird kind of kid who pees his pants and eats his boogers. But it is told to us that Kevin is supposed to be sharing a room with him, and Kevin is just upset about this. He's very kind of pissed, and he kind of fights it. I think his mom is the one who mentions it to him, and Kevin says, "You know what? I'm not sharing the bed with him. This is my house. I'm sleeping in my own room, in my own bed," which I guess that makes the most sense. But nope, he's gonna have to share the bed, and something happens with Kevin in which he knocks over soda all over the countertop, just spilling soda everywhere, getting the napkins all covered in soda, which kind of prevents them from cleaning, since, I mean, it's kind of what the napkins do, but they're all wet, covered in soda. So they're trying to clean it up, and actually, fun fact, I don't know if a whole lot of people have noticed this. This is something I only discovered the other day while browsing Reddit. But apparently, when they were cleaning the actual mess up, because I know a big question is, well, what happened to Kevin's ticket? Like, did it just disappear? I mean, no, that's my assumption. I just assumed that it had vanished, or it had been misplaced, especially in such a large house with so many people. I just assumed, it just got lost. It got misplaced somewhere. But no, if I'll have a video playing currently that shows kind of when they were cleaning it up. We see Kevin's ticket being used to clean up the mess and then thrown in the garbage, which that's what happened to his ticket, was it was thrown away in the garbage, which I feel like is very interesting. And a subtle thing that they included in the movie, something that they didn't even have to mention or include, kind of lore to why Kevin's ticket just magically disappeared. But that was a little interesting fact that I found out recently about the movie. So Kevin is yelled at. His family looks at him very angrily, kind of like, you ruined dinner. See what you did, you filthy animal? You ruined the dinner. You made this mess. So Kevin kind of runs up to his little hidden room. Well, it's not very hidden, but it's tucked away in the attic where his room is. Well, that's where he went to, was his room. But here we see him kind of have internal dialogue with himself about his family, and he this is where we kind of see him wish them away. He kind of tells himself, oh, I wish they would go away, or something along the lines of them disappearing and not coming back. And it's supposed to kind of show that he is the outcast of the family. Or, I mean, the assumption that I can make about this kind of dinner and kind of Kevin disappearing and wishing them away is Kevin's relationship with his entire family. And he's kind of like, it's weird because he's the center of attention, but at the same time he's also kind of quiet and reserved and not very open, even with his conversations with Buzz or Uncle Frank. He's very to himself, kind of an introvert in some ways, but also an extrovert. So it's kind of a paradox. I don't really know how else to describe it, that voice crack. But so yeah, we kind of see his, at this point in the movie, his relationship with the family, and we see this progress for the better later on in the movie, or throughout the entire movie. We see his perception and attitude of his family drastically change. And then I think the next scene is actually the next day. We kind of see the morning after from two different perspectives. We see it from Kevin's family and Kevin himself. So the scene starts with the family rushing very, very quickly, trying to last minute pack, which is very strange to think about. Such a large family who's going on a trip, which is actually something I didn't mention. The family is supposed to go on vacation, I believe, somewhere in Europe. Yeah, that has to be true. They're going somewhere in Europe, and I'm pretty sure it is France, Paris, or Paris specifically in France. I think it's France. I'm almost certain. So we see them. Well, back to what I was saying. You would expect such a large family to be a lot more organized with their packing, but clearly, that is not the case. We see them last minute packing and rushing all over the place. The mom and the dad are trying to get their stuff together. And then you have the children of 8, 10 kids also trying to get their stuff together, along with all the aunts and the uncles who are also trying to get their stuff together. I actually don't know too much about the other family members. I think, well, Uncle Frank is obviously Kevin McAllister's dad's brother. And we kind of see a contrast between both the dad and the brother. That is Uncle Frank and Kevin's dad. We see Kevin's dad is kind of doing well for himself. He works for, I don't know if it's stated in the movie, but it's basically implied that they're a very wealthy family. And obviously, as we see, with the neighborhood, along with their house and all those kids, and the fact that they can afford even a trip to go to Paris with that many people, there has to be at least half a dozen people. And I'm sure it is very, very expensive to send half a dozen people overseas to France for a week or a couple days. Actually, I believe, well, no, I don't know how long they were supposed to go for, but I know the family ended up returning sometime either Christmas Day or the 26th of December because they realized that Kevin was missing. But back to what I was saying before, we see the family all over the place trying to get their stuff together. And then they get into the car. Everybody, they're doing a head count. We see them counting their tickets. And I believe during this time, Kevin is sleeping. I don't know. I remember he woke up in his parents' room. I don't know how exactly he got there. I don't know if it was... Maybe it was the next day. I'm not exactly sure, but I remember a scene where Kevin woke up in his parents' bed, and he was kind of in shock. But we see them get to the airport. They're running to their plane. They're already running late for the plane. And they get on the plane, they board it, and we see a scene of the mom and the dad kind of sitting there, and she kind of has a realization that she didn't see Kevin. And she's like, Kevin? And I think we get the notorious line like, Kevin! Kevin! I hope that's the same movie, otherwise I'm going to sound like an idiot. But I believe she had a realization that Kevin was not on the plane with them, or at least within her knowledge of where he could possibly be. So then we get a cut to the McAllister's home, and it's very quiet, which is a contrast to the normal busyness and clutter of the kids and the family members all over the place. And we see Kevin wake up, and he's kind of relaxed, he's calm, and he walks down to the kitchen, and nobody's there. And we see him we see this interesting scene of him walking around, Mom, Dad, Uncle Frank, Buzz, kind of saying the family members' names. And I really like that scene. It's probably one of my favorite scenes from the movie, where we kind of see him for the first time home alone, if you can believe that, as the movie, or as the title insists. For the first time we see him home alone. And we see him walking all over the house. It's the first time where we see kind of the empty house, and it really captures the atmosphere of the family and the vibe of the family. I don't know if we see Buzz's room at this point. I know we see it later on in the film, when he's kind of devising his plans. But we kind of see him, walking around trying to figure out what the heck is going on. And then he finally realizes that he is, well, alone by himself. And I think the first thing he does is watch his TV. I believe he turns on the TV and he goes to make something to eat. And he realizes that there's no leftover pizza and there's no food in the fridge. And then he decides, you know what, I'm going to walk to the grocery store and buy stuff there. And this is, the second time, but the first time we see the Wet Bandits together. Obviously, we see the bald guy. I can't remember his name. Let me try and think. Is it Joe Pesci who plays him? I hope that's right. I think it's Joe Pesci. I just that was the first name that popped into my head, so I'm gonna go with Joe Pesci. So we see him kind of, he woke up, he's shocked, or he woke up, he's walking around the house, and then he's shocked because nobody's home. He's all alone, and we kind of see him, with the scene where he kind of puts his hands on his face and he has that scream. Not the one where he's using aftershave, but when he kind of realizes for the first time that he's alone. And then, he goes to the convenience store where we see him kind of have that interaction with the clerk, where and he buys the groceries there. And then on his way home, we have the first interaction between Kevin and the Wet Bandits, where it shows him walking, and he almost gets ran over by the Wet Bandits, and it's kind of a shock to him. And it was kind of a traumatic scene for Kevin, and the first time where we see the three of them in the scene together shown, kind of to make you understand that we see the Wet Bandits for the first time, really, or we don't see their mischievous. We don't see their kind of bad attitude yet, but we see them kind of plotting and figuring out what they're going to do and how they're going to rob the McAllister household. And so Kevin gets home. He, I believe after he got home, it cuts directly back to the Wet Bandits, where we see them in the car. And they pull up to Kevin's house, and we see them, the Wet Bandits, thinking of how they're going to rob them. And we kind of, again, back to what I mentioned previously, we see their mischievousness, if that's a real word, and kind of setting up their character and what their vibe is. We kind of see their stupidness and their idiocy. Yeah, idiocy. And there we kind of see them trying to figure out what exactly they're going to do. I don't remember exactly how they or how Kevin finds out that the Wet Bandits are plotting to rob him, but I do remember that there was a point, and again, I don't know what it is, so it's not very useful, but I remember there was a point where Kevin has a realization that, holy crap, I'm gonna get robbed. And we kind of see his realization of that. I believe it happens later on in the day. And we see him realize that he's going to have to fend them off because he's going to get robbed, or the house is going to get robbed. So we kind of see him, at this point we see Kevin start to devise plans to prevent them from robbing him. And we see this scene of him kind of planning things out and getting things going, or not exactly getting things going, but making a rough plan of how he's going to protect the house. We see him going into Buzz's room to search for, you know, things to build to keep the house from being robbed. So actually, I just remembered something about the plot, and how Kevin figures out that his house is gonna be robbed. I believe he overhears actually the wet bandits. What are their names? Let me try and remember. I know one was Marv. Who was the other guy? Harry. That was the other guy's name. But he realizes that he's gonna get robbed. And Kevin, he goes to, is it a church or a school? I can't remember. I think it was a church, yeah, because we see the scene where, I remember later on in the movie, or earlier, or at the same time, I meant to say, he kind of goes into the, where the nativity set is, and we kind of see him huddled up in there, but it was a church, and I think there he meets the neighbor. I think his name was similar to Harry. Was it Marley? Something Marley. Oh, Old Man Marley. Okay. And Old Man Marley. This is the creepy guy who Buzz, I believe, warns Kevin that he is a psychopath. But so Kevin is sitting down at the church. I hope that I'm getting that right. I'm pretty sure it's the church. But we see Kevin sitting there, and then Old Man Marley. If all this is wrong, I'm gonna sound like an idiot. But we see Marley sit next to Kevin, where we see a bit of dialogue kind of go back and forth, and we find out that Old Man Marley's not a bad guy, and Kevin realizes this too. And so we see them talk, and they end up becoming on good terms now. And then I think it cuts back to Kevin returning home, and at this point he knows that he's going to be robbed. So we see him set up the booby traps, which is probably my favorite scene. Definitely my favorite scene of the movie is of him kind of making the blueprints and actually setting up the traps. Some notable ones is the door handle, or the Christmas ornaments in the race cars. What else? The hot iron. Just a lot of interesting and intriguing ideas we see Kevin somehow make up. And I believe this all kind of, like, him making the plans all happens within a couple hours. And it's funny looking at this movie now, because something like this would never happen in 2017. It just wouldn't. I mean, we have cell phones and the internet, so I mean, there's just no way. There's no way it would happen. If they noticed Kevin wasn't there, all it would take is a simple phone call or text like, "Kevin, we're coming back and getting you," or "Kevin, are you here?" But obviously this took place in the 80s, and cell phones weren't exactly universally used amongst people like they are today. So we see Kevin setting up his setting up the booby traps, and we kind of see the wet bandits scoping out the house, and they tell themselves that, like, we're gonna rob them tonight. And so Kevin sets up the traps. He has his BB gun. He has the paint cans. That was another one where we see the wet bandits trying to climb up the stairs and failing to do so, in the process getting pounded by a bunch of paint cans. But we see Marley. I think the first trap was Marley or Joe Pesci. yeah, now that I say that, those are the Wet Bandits names. It's Marley and, or not Marley, Harry and Marv. Marv is Joe Pesci, and I don't know what Harry's name is, but I know he has curly hair, and he's the taller one. But we see Marv walk up to the front door where he touches the door handle, and it singes his hand, which leads him to fall and bust his ass on the steps, between not only the hot handle and the ice-covered stairs. We see him take a pretty bad digger. And then they go around to the other side. And at this point, Kevin knows that that the Wet Bandits are there. But we see them go over to... Wait, hold on. I want to mention this also. I don't know... I want to know where they got the name the Wet Bandits. Are they like slimy? I don't know. I want to know why they're called the Wet Bandits though. So, they go to the side door, and I believe Marv once again, poor Marv, tries to open the door and gets singed. This is the shorter guy. I think the shorter guy is Marv, and then the taller guy is Harry. But we see, and again, I just know. I'm so bad with names. I know Joe Pesci's 1000% in Home Alone. I just don't know if he played Harry or Marv. I think Marv is the shorter guy and Harry is the taller guy. I mean, it makes sense. Harry, he's got curly hair. He's hairy, he's got a beard. Marv is just short and he's balding. But we see Marv open the side door where we see his hair and head get singed, and this is a shock. I don't know how he survived that, but he got singed pretty bad for quite a good amount of time. And we see him kind of back off a little bit with Harry in the background, kind of in shock. And then Marv, who is pretty fed up, we see him kind of say, you know what, screw this. You're going to try and go in through the basement door. And we see Harry, the taller guy, go to the side door, or the other side door. It's a big house, okay? We see him go to the basement door, and he starts walking down, and soon enough he slips and falls on oil, something like that, and we see him fall all the way back, or not all the way back, but all the way down to the door of the basement, which also I'm pretty sure Kevin has a fear of the basement or the radiator, because in the beginning now the more I talk about it, the more I remember about the movie, and I want to be like, I wish I knew that earlier. But Kevin had a fear of the basement and the furnace. But we see Harry, who has managed to make it all the way down semi-successfully, at least all in one piece, to the basement door, and he's cautious to make sure his hand doesn't get singed or his hair. And then he opens that, and we see him get to the stairs that lead up to the actual door. And I think he steps on a nail while going up the stairs, which kind of sends a shock to his system, and he kind of falls back down, and he says, you know what, screw this. We're not doing this anymore. And Marv is a bit upset because he wants to commit and finish the deed. He was like, we're already here, we might as well just take care of it. So then, Harry walks back up the stairs. They kind of, rethink their plan, and they decide, you know what? We're going to go to the window and go in through the window on the first floor. And we see them open the I think Marv had a crowbar. That was like his thing. Because I know he opened the window with a crowbar. I don't know if he kept that throughout the movie, but I know that was his method to open the window, was using a crowbar. So we see the wet bandits kind of enter through the side window, where they're met by another trap, and that's where we see them step um on the race cars and the broken, or not, I don't think they're broken yet, but on the Christmas ornaments. And this is Harry, who had recently had a nail penetrated through his foot, so he didn't have his shoes on. I remember this. I remember he didn't have his shoes on because he just freaking got a nail through his foot. So he didn't have his shoes on, and he kind of went in first, and he stepped on the race cars and ornaments. We kind of see him take a tumble, and I think it's at this point where we find out that the wet bandits are aware that Kevin is in the house, or that at least somebody's in the house, and at this point they tell themselves, screw it, like, now we're in the house, we gotta figure something out. And I think they get in through the window, and then they look over and they see Kevin for the first time, or, well, not the first time, but the first time since they've entered the house. And Kevin says, like, some snarky remark, like, "See you later, suckers." And he starts a giant fan, which is covered in feathers, and I think tar, maybe? I don't know. I know they got tarred and feathered. But we kind of see them, take another L. And it kind of angers them, and their objective went from robbing the house to kicking Kevin's ass. So, they're angry. Kevin, switches locations, and he goes upstairs to, obviously, where the stairs are. And the wet bandits see them, and, they're angry. And we kind of see their greediness and their kind of whatever the negative connotation of determination is. We see them just pissed, and we see the wet bandits, kind of really want to seek revenge and rip Kevin's head off. And they go to the stairs, and this is where we see the paint trap. I think that's what I'll call it. And they try going up the stairs, and guess what? Paint cans to the face. And they get hit by the paint cans pretty hard, which sends them falling down the stairs. And again, I remembered another thing, and I wish I knew it before. I think when Harry was going up the stairs, this is way back to when he went into the basement and got a nail in the foot, but he got hit by an iron, a hot iron, and got shocked by the washer or dryer machine. But so he had already. I remember this now because I'm envisioning the scene in my head, and I see Harry with a giant triangle singe mark on his face. So they're just getting burned, literally and metaphorically. So back to the paint cans to the face, just really adding insult to injury. And they fail to get up the stairs again, and I believe they finally get up the stairs, and Kevin had like a little tripwire, because I remember that he threw all the cans and he kind of flicked it with his finger, and he ran to the end of the hallway with his BB gun. I don't know if he used his BB gun at any point throughout the movie, but I do know that he had it on him kind of as a backup, which, if you think about it, it's probably not going to help him that much. So we see them trip over the wire, but now they're on the same floor as Kevin. But little do they know that Kevin is not even in the house. He's in his treehouse. And I believe somewhere between the point in which the wet bandits get to the top floor and when Kevin flees the house, he calls 911, or someone else calls 911. It might be Old Man Harley? Old Man Marley. There we go. But somewhere between when they get to the actual floor, the cops have been called. So it's just a matter of time before they show up. So then they get up on the floor. Kevin at this point is in his tree house. He kind of has his wire or rope. It's not a wire, it's a rope that led from the window to his tree house. And the wet bandits see him and they're like, you know what? You're dead, kid. Like, you're cornered. We're gonna, as soon as we get across this rope, you're dead meat. So we see the wet bandits start to cross the rope and get to the other side. And I think in the meantime, kind of to hop back to the family, throughout all of this happening, we see the family enjoying themselves. They're, partying it away in Paris. I think the mom may had, they were like, it was like a layaway I think a layaway, I don't know what it's called. But the plane had landed, like halfway there, in like another location, still in America, but, it was kind of them getting off the first plane to go into the other plane. I don't know what it's called. I've never taken an airplane before, so please forgive me. I'm not too familiar with aviation. But we see the family's partying away, and the mom, just freaking out, like, I don't have my kid, he's at home, I'm all the way in another state, like, I need to find a way to get back home to make sure that he's okay. And I think somewhere along the line, or somewhere along the way, we see her meet up with the band guys. I don't know exactly what their names are, but she meets up with the band guys and makes a deal. And we see her kind of drive home, because I believe that they were heading towards New York City, and we see them make a deal, or I don't know if it was a deal or if it was just something out of generosity, but we see the guy tell Kevin's mom, like, you know what, you can come with us, we'll take you home, to make sure that Kevin is okay. And meanwhile, I think the family is it was already in Paris, because I believe there's a scene in which we see them kind of partying on Christmas Eve in a nice apartment or house in Paris. And I think the mom gets in touch with them and tells them that she's heading home and that Kevin is not here. And I think it's also here that we see them leave Paris early to head back home, because obviously Kevin's not there. So this is kind of a wrench in the gear. Is that how the term goes? It kind of sets their whole vacation for a ride on its own. So back to Kevin and the Wet Bandits back in New York. So the Wet Bandits are walking across, and then Kevin has a set of clippers, weed trimmer, something like that. But he cuts the rope, which sends the Wet Bandits crashing to the ground, and then the police finally show up. Or no, the police don't show up yet. The Wet Bandits fall, and Old Man Marley shows up, and he hits them over the head with a shovel, which is ironic because Buzz warned Kevin, like, you know what, better stay away from them, they're gonna hit you with a shovel. And we see him kind of come to the rescue and save Kevin from possibly being murdered by the Wet Bandits. And then finally the police show up. Marley tells them that these Wet Bandits are up to no good, and we see Harley, combining names now, we see Harry and Marvin kind of, they're arrested and they're thrown into the cop car, and we see a bit of, or a moment between Kevin and Marley kind of one last time before the end of the movie, or we see him one more time, but this is the last kind of conversation that we see between Marley and Kevin. And while this is all happening, the mom is on her way home, and I don't know if it's that night or the next morning that she gets home, but I believe it is the next day, because the next day is Christmas Day. But we see Kevin kind of wake up, and he's at this point we see him disappointed and kind of upset that his family's gone, which goes back to what I mentioned before about how Kevin was a bit upset about, or initially, but in the beginning of the film, Kevin is upset with his family and just wants them to disappear. And then he goes to bed, and then finally he wakes up on Christmas Day, and he's kind of, feeling lonely and wants them back. And he's upset, and then he hears one of the family members enter the home, and at this point, somehow, miraculously, the whole family is back in New York. And they see Kevin, and Kevin is crazy excited to see his family. And he doesn't mention anything about the wet bandits. Here's another thing I'd like to mention, a bit of a plot hole. Did Kevin just magically manage to clean everything up? Was there no police report done? Because I don't think the family finds out that they had an attempted robbery that happened at their house. I think it just happened, and then, oh no, they're arrested. You guys don't have to worry about it anymore. But we see the family kind of reunite with Kevin again, and I think either Kevin or another family member finds a part of Marv's tooth. Because early, and again, another thing I remembered now that I'm talking about the movie and it's coming to my head, we see in the beginning, Marv, when he comes in as a police officer, smile at Kevin with his gold tooth, and it kind of shines. But we see Kevin or another family member, I'm not exactly sure who found it, but we see them kind of pick it up and question what the heck it is. And I think we see Buzz walk into his room and kind of yell at Kevin, where we see Kevin kind of run off, and this is another kind of moment where we see Buzz's relationship with Kevin. Buzz is supposed to be some big tough guy, and Kevin is kind of, it's like David and Goliath in a sense, but it's not. There's no actual feud or anything. It's just it's more one-sided, where we see Buzz kind of call out Kevin or kind of entice him a bit and kind of bring out his angry side, Kevin's angry side. I'm not exactly sure how to preface it. But we see the family home. It's snowing. It's a white Christmas. Kevin goes to the window, and guess who he sees in the window? He sees a familiar face. Old Man Marley, shoveling away. And, we see Old Man Marley kind of give him a wink. We see Kevin give him a wink. And then we hear one more time, we hear a good old Kevin. I think it was the mom who yelled at Kevin. But it was a bad start, or a bad most of the movie, and we kind of see a nice conclusion, which is expected, not only because it's a Christmas movie but a family movie, and it wouldn't really make much sense to end it on a bad note. And I think maybe we see the family kind of open presents, or at least have a moment of kind of content. And we see everybody who was previously kind of greedy and self-indulgent. No, that's not the word. We see them kind of angry at Kevin, and Kevin angry at them, and we see that completely vanish when they kind of meet again, and we see Kevin, who's very thankful, and we see the family who's also very thankful for Kevin. And we kind of get that feel-good moment of the family reunited, and things are back to normal. And this is, I think that's where the movie ends. The movie ends with Kevin giving the wink to Marley, and then we hear his mom yell the notorious Kevin line. I'm not gonna try and recreate it for the third time now, but I think you get the point. But with that being said, that'll conclude the first iteration of Reel to Reel, which is a concept in which I dissect a movie solely based off what I remember from it. And since I will be doing Christmas themed episodes every week for the entire month of December, I thought, there's no better time to do Home Alone than now. I do apologize if I got that completely wrong, but I tried my best to recall what I remember. Hopefully I will not be lazy and include images of the movie and maybe even some videos that or not videos but GIFs, not GIFs, those are cool too, but kind of moments from the movie to show my accuracy or complete inaccuracy. But with that being said, that'll conclude this episode of Morning by the Coast. I would like to mention one more time that for the entire month of December, I'm going to be doing Christmas-themed episodes. And next week, I'll be talking about my best and worst Christmas memories. I'll be talking about the good and the bad times. And, so I'm pretty excited for the future of the podcast. Now that I have an actual setup going, I can, I feel a lot more better with doing these with an actual setup. I know for the first 2 episodes, I did them outside, and I don't have an issue with that. That there was no, there's nothing that I had against that. But there's something about actually being able to sit down at my desk with a microphone in front of me with my headphones in, and actually being able to see what I'm saying, and with the program open, and being able to pause whenever I want, or clip certain parts of it out or add other things to it, compared to using it on my phone. I'm very restricted with what I'm able to do. I'm running it off my phone's battery, so I have to charge it or make sure that I'm not running low on battery. There's just a lot going on that kind of messed up my recording and really just motivation to record episodes, because when I'm doing it on my phone, it's a lot more restricting. But now that I have accessibility to the microphone, my computer, and the software to actually film good episodes, it's a lot more reassuring, and it gives me the motivation to film more episodes. And I have a whole document on Google Drive of what I want to do with the podcast this month and just in the future in general. And Reel to Reel is one of those things that I would like to continue doing. I know I mentioned how I didn't really have an idea of where I would like to see the podcast going. And I still don't have a complete, knowledge or complete knowledge of what I want to do with the podcast, or really even what I want to film. I know that was a big thing for a while, was I didn't know what to talk about. I really didn't know what to talk about. Even with this episode, I found myself kind of just blanking out at a couple times and not really knowing what to talk about. But especially with the first 2 episodes, and the environment was weird, and there were to kind of go back to episode 2. I kind of talked about Star Wars, which is something I would absolutely love to go back and talk about. I don't know if it'll be within this month, even though Star Wars is set to release on the 15th, which is roughly 2 weeks from now. But I will eventually get around to finishing kind of my Star Wars video. I don't think it'll be the predictions that I was talking about or in regards to my predictions for Star Wars The Last Jedi, but I'll be talking about more so not my predictions but my actual experience with the film itself, rather than my predictions, because at that point it'll be too late. So anyways, I'm pretty excited to share more about Christmas and kind of continuing to do the Christmas themed episodes for the entire month of December. And it's great. This month is awesome because each Monday is going to work for me, and especially with Christmas Day falling on a Monday, will be awesome being able to upload Morning by the Coast on Christmas Day, which will be a Christmas themed episode. You bet it. You already know it's going to be Christmas themed. Obviously, I've said that probably 50 times. I just want to make sure that people know that all of these episodes will be Christmas related. And if you don't like Christmas, I'm sorry. And if you don't celebrate it, I'm also sorry. But I'll try and also talk about other things, not only just Christmas, but just this time of the year, just December, and kind of, the end of a year and the start of another. I'll probably be uploading clips of the podcast. So maybe you don't want to listen to the Christmas themed episode. You can always just listen to clips of it. I'll have clips of maybe stories. I mean, they'll most likely be Christmas related, but you won't have to listen to the whole podcast. Rather, you can just listen to my favorite parts from that episode. But I have a lot of I have a lot of ideas and hopes for this podcast, and again, I'm at this point, I'm just mouthing off, but I'm excited to actually get back into this and really commit to it, and keep doing this, and that's pretty much all I have to say. And thank you for listening to Morning by the Coast, a weekly podcast brought to you every Monday morning at 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you'd like to contact me, you can feel free to email me at mbtcpodcast.info@gmail.com. Once again, that is mbtcpodcast.info@gmail.com. I had to open up my document and make sure I had that right, because I'm still getting the hang of it, and but you can email me any questions, topics, any stories, anything that you'd like me to share on the podcast. Feel free to shoot me an email. I'll be willing to open it and read it, or not open it. Well, you get the point. But share it on the show. You could have pictures. Maybe you want me to show your pictures or drawings or literally anything whatsoever. Feel free to email me. And you can head over to my website, which is morningbythecoastblog.wordpress.com. Once again, that is morningbythecoastblog.wordpress.com. This is Morning by the Coast, and I'll see you guys again soon.